Happy Monday, St. Luke. It's good to spend a little time with you. I'm sitting at home and I'm in one of my favorite places in our house. I'm really impressed by the work that Crystal has done to decorate the house, but one of the reasons why this is my favorite spot are the pictures that you see behind me. These pictures are of special people, special memories, special moments in our life. A picture of when Crystal and I were on a cruise together, the fun that we had, an engagement picture of Crystal and I, a moment at our dear friend's wedding in St. Louis just a couple of years ago, a wedding picture of Crystal and I, a picture from that same wedding with our goddaughter and our best friends, a wedding picture, and then a silly one with our dog. These are just fond moments. This is a comfortable, special place for me. I love looking back on these memories. We've just come through a weekend with tears, but with joy and with celebration. As our leader of so many years, Barry, celebrated his last weekend among us for a while. And we looked at the parable of the talents from Matthew chapter 25. And we talked about how God is such a gracious giver. He gives us extravagant gifts. He invites us into his work in his kingdom. And so as we think back on this last weekend, as we think back on so many years of being served by Barry, of God's faithfulness to us through him, and how Barry has invited us to participate in God's work, I want to set that challenge before you again today. Look with me at Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10, if you will. For by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one might boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we might walk in them. The message of Ephesians 2, 8 through 10 is the same one that we considered over the weekend. It's that God is the giver of good gifts. It's God who has brought us to saving faith in Jesus. It's not something we do, it's not something we earn, but that God gives us this extravagant gift of his love and his grace and his mercy. But we're reminded by Paul, just as we're reminded by Jesus in the parable of the talents, that while God gives extravagant gifts to us, he wants us to use them for his purposes. Ephesians 2, verse 10 tells us that we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God's prepared that we might walk in them. We talked in the parable of the talents about how God gives us gifts, but then expects us to use them for his purposes. Barry has, for so many years, set before us the invitation to participate in God's work, and that continues today. Dear people of God, as we move into a new chapter together as a congregation, the blessings, the gifts of God remain the same. He loves you. He lavishes his grace upon you just as he has for so long. And as he's drawn you to faith, as he's given you faith in his Son, so too he sends you out. I am so excited about what the future holds for us as a congregation as we continue to join God in what he's already doing among us. It's time for us to continue on that legacy of faith that has been handed down to us by so many in the past that have been a part of our congregation, whether pastors or family members. And so I pray that God blesses you today as you look for opportunities to participate in what he has done, that as we share the faith with others, that as they come to know Jesus, they might experience that same joy that we have. Just like those words that we hear in the parable of the talents, that just like us, they might enter into the joy of their master. God's blessings to you today and in the many days to come as we continue on in our life together as God's people at St. Luke.